Hi, I'm Glenn Everett, master of machines. If it's machines you want, then we have found them. Military machines. We're at Ron Fry's. Now, Ron's got a fantastic military vehicle collection here. He restores them, he drives them, and he loves them. So let's catch up with Ron and take a look around. When somebody told me about Ron's military vehicle collection in country Victoria, I never dreamed it'd be anything like this. There are vehicles everywhere here, 40 acres. It's almost like I've been dropped back in time into a war zone. There's tanks, there's trucks, there's vehicles everywhere. Parts, bits and pieces. A person could get lost in this place. Now I wonder where Ron is. He's got to be floating around here somewhere. What's this? V8 of some sort. I don't know what sort of car he drives. What the? It's a tank! Oh! Ron?
How you going?
Glenn, mate, nice to meet you. What an animal. What an animal, mate.
I was wondering who this bloke was standing much on with gear.
I was expecting a car to come round the corner. I thought, what's this beast? He must drive some sort of a weapon, and it's a tank.
Oh, it's a hot rod tank.
Fantastic.
Been interested in military vehicles and all machinery, and for that fact, all my life. I grew up on a farm in central Victoria, playing around scale models, and led from there on to 1-to-1 scales, the big ones. When I could get old enough and afford it, my very first vehicle was a bring gun carrier that my dad bought for me as payment for working on the farm. So that's where it really started. This is a modified M3 Stuart tank. It's an American-made light tank during World War II, around about 1940s era, and about 370 of these were shipped to Australia when we thought the Japanese were going to attack. This one here has been modified and cut down. It should sit, the hull should be up about that height, and then the turret would go on top of that. This one's modified, and they actually did this during the war and made reconnaissance vehicles out of them. This one's a little bit further modified than what they would have done back then, in that it's got a moderner engine. It's got a 351 Cleveland in it with a 650 Holley and a C10 auto, and modified extractors so that they're sticking out the back like a boat. As you can see, I've had to fit the big bull dust air cleaner, because in the summer here this raises so much dust. It's a bit like the tractor pulls. You've got to have the big air cleaner to clean the air. And I've also fitted a larger radiator because it's rear air cooled and rear water cooled, and the air blows out through the back so that I'm not sucking dust in. And it's also got the oil cooler here. This radiator and oil cooler setup here is off an ACO Army truck, which had the oil cooler for the gearbox.
So what engine did they have in them, Ron, to start with?
Originally they had a Continental 7-cylinder radial engine, which is similar to, if not the same as an aircraft engine. There were about 50 of these came to Australia with a diesel engine called a Guyverson diesel. Similar layout. It's a radial design, which is why these tanks sat so high. But it was at the time the only thing that would give 275 horsepower required for the 13-ton weight of this tank to move it around at 58 kilometres an hour, which is a speed of faster than a normal truck or whatever back then. These were a very fast tank.
And how's she perform with the Clevo?
It performs all right. The power's up high. There's not much torque there, but once you get it revving, it's all right.
She sounds good.
Oh yeah, there's always issues with maintenance on these things and cooling problems. If I was to put all the top back onto this, there'd probably be even more cooling issues with it. But at the moment, with the engine exposed like this and simplified exhausts and radiators, it's all working.
Well, here's one for the Mopar fans, a Dodge. Tell us about this old gem, Ron.
Yeah, this is a beauty, this old Dodge. This is what commonly known as a Lend-Lease truck. During the war, they were short of military vehicles, namely trucks, transporting equipment, and they had to impress civilian trucks into service. And as you can see, it's got a hatch in the roof there. They have blackout lights. They cut the guards high to put big military wheels on them, and they black out everything, as in paint, no chrome or anything on them. Military style bumper bars and brush guards, and then they make usually a local pattern body on the back of it, usually a wood construction or something like that. And Holden did a lot of them. They made a lot of backs and bodies to fit onto different model trucks.
And what were they used for predominantly?
These were for transporting equipment up to like Darwin on the Stuart Highway.
And the power plant?
Oh, a standard Dodge flathead. I joined the Army and spent almost 23 years there. To service in East Timor and Afghanistan. I was a recovery mechanic. That all stems from my interest in military vehicles, I guess. I restore them now. I've got about 60 vehicles to do, and I don't know if I'll ever get them all done, but it's a passion. It's pretty much a full-time hobby, and I'll just keep plugging away until I can't anymore.
Stay tuned, because coming up, I get to drive a real tank. What have we got here on a Ford?
Yeah, it's the same sort of idea as the Dodge we're just looking at. Lend-Lease trucks again. All the equipment was shipped over from America or England to Commonwealth countries, Australia or Russia, to aid in their war efforts. There's a Ford here and a Chev there. Civilian trucks, militarised. This one's got very hard to find 18-inch wheels, or the tyres are very hard to find. Combat rims. As you can see, there's got the bolts all around the outside to aid in splitting the rim to change tyres. Militarised again, high cut guards with the big knobby tyres on them for off-road use. These are the standard side valve V8, as in everything back then, very common engine. And this one over here is a Chev version. And as you can see again, high cut guards, got little blackout lights for night convoy use. And blacked out grills, no chrome.
So for those people that wonder what that blackouting is for, that's to basically stop aircraft from having somewhere to shoot and bomb, I suppose, at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just so you're not lighting up the area in front of you. Basically, in nighttime convoy driving, you're just following the little markers in front of you. These little blackout lights, all they really do is illuminate a few feet in front of you, and a lot of times the diff of the front vehicle was painted white, so that would reflect and you'd see the vehicle just in front of you. But when it's dusty, mate, you're just guessing where to drive. And I was in the Army for nearly 23 years, and many occasions you just ram up the back of another truck in the dark because you couldn't see who was in front of you. I'm doing a bring gun carrier for the Bendigo RSL now. Some of the ones I'm doing end up in museums. One of my Grant tanks went to the Israeli Tank Museum, and others have gone over to England, so there's some of my work all over the world.
Well, speaking of tanks, Ron, how about we have a look at that operational tank that we saw this morning?
Oh, I thought you'd never ask. Let's go.
So here she is, Ron. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, this is one of the 370 Stuarts that was shipped into the country. This one here I've rebuilt from basically a track height up, and using parts of other original vehicles that were chopped up by farmers and engineers. And this one's a runner, and I was just wondering if you'd like a drive.
You serious?
Yeah.
I can drive this tank.
You can have a good drive.
Mate, you got a deal. Let's do it. Well, looks like I'm about to drive a tank. First I've got to try and fit in this thing. Let's give this thing hell. Wouldn't want to be in a hurry, would you? Time for action. I'm driving a tank. Got to look the part. Let's do it! The M3 Stuart tank was used by US and Allied forces until the end of the war. The M3 Stuart was also the first American crewed tank in World War II to engage the enemy in tank versus tank combat. Overall weight of the Stuart was 14,700 kilograms. The engine was a Continental 7-cylinder air-cooled radial producing 250 horsepower with a top speed of 36 miles per hour. Well, we're driving a tank! Woo!
Driving a tank. All right, let's go up this hill. Yep, we got it. Come on, baby, come on.
You really notice the engine in this thing struggling when you go up some of these rises and hills. The poor engine is really working hard because these things weigh so much. Imagine what they would have been like in wartime with all their militaria and weaponry on board. Tell you one thing, if anyone ever thought driving a tank was going to be easy, you're dead wrong. These things are hard work. It's not easy to drive. It's definitely not comfortable in here, and it's also difficult to steer. You've effectively got to pull back on these levers to make the thing either stop or make a turn one at a time. So when you pull back on one lever, it applies a brake to that side and pulls the thing around. But you'll notice the engine actually dies down as you do that, so if you're pulling it flat out for too long, she'll actually stall. It's a bit of a balancing act between the two. The clutch is super heavy, and the gear shift is really, really difficult to shift. It's a nightmare, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we're slotting gears now.
When you're on the move in this thing, you've got so much weight, over 14 tonne pushing against you, there's no room for mistakes, especially in some of the downhill stuff and the sloshy, muddy stuff too. If you don't get it right or select gear in time, you're not going to be able to pull up the next hill.
This is unbelievable. Things go anywhere. Can't believe we got through that water and that mud.
You've got to have your wits about you in this thing, believe me. I really respect what these drivers would have gone through back in the day in World War II. This would have been hard work on the battlefield. There'd be no room for error either. One mistake and it's all over.
Wow. I feel like I can conquer the world in this thing. The world! That was something special, something really special. I just drove a tank, a tank!
If you thought that was wild, then be sure to check out my 4,000 horsepower nitro funny car drive. People said I was insane, but it was an opportunity I had to take. A once-in-a-lifetime drive like nothing you've ever seen before. Be sure to check it out via the link.